Hello, everyone. Hi, world. Hi. We are live. My name is Adela Hittell. I am the host of the Artist Within podcast. Welcome. It is produced by Think Project Human. Think, a new way to think about mental health. And I am super excited to talk to you guys today and to also talk to you with someone whom I really truly respect about a topic that really has worked with us through these last 3.5 years of relationship that we've built, and that is a solid foundation within produces solid foundations in relationships, and something that we've both held each other accountable for. So I'm really, really excited to introduce you guys to Brandy Klimack, Brandy K, BK, not the king, but the queen, because that's what she is. And welcome to my, I'm really excited for us to be back with this, because I've done this for, you'll vouch now. I started this 2.5, 3 years ago with the Thinking About Me podcast, and I was all about but it really started all about the within and the me and the relationship, and starting to figure out who I am, what I am, define my narrative before I could even be here to have a really solid conversation about something that's extremely important to me, a topic that not only is important to me, but also everyone that I know and almost every human being right now, on how do we work on healing the self and the human within before we can heal the world and change everything. All of this starts from inside, and it starts with the artist that you are. And so the podcast is about that. I'm really excited that we've gotten to this and we've gotten to hear about it. So Brandy, welcome. Thank you for being here. And introduce yourself first, and then I'll have a question for you.
Well, I'm the one and only Brandy Klimack, and I have known you for like 3 years now. And it has been definitely a journey for sure, but a good one, a good one. I wouldn't change anything, and I think we have been weaving just the way our dynamic is, and just who I am, and then who you are, and just like how that just kind of like that part in the Avatar, The Last Airbender, where the dragons are just like weaving, and that's us. Like, we just have a solid understanding of each other, but who we are. And even if we don't in that moment, it's like, hey, so that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to share it, because I think it's an experience that people need and crave and desire and want more than anything. But I don't think they realize that they need it. I also don't think they realize or even know how to get there. And even if they do know, it's building that trust in another human, especially when you've been like really, really wronged or hurt for sometimes your entire life. And so I think before we dive deep into all of that, I think, and we can touch more on it later, that's one of our big pieces that makes us work.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, you touched a really good point on that. It's the ebb and flow of the relationship. I think when we started, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to ask you about our first meeting, because I think that was a really important meeting for us. And I'm so grateful to, number one, I want to point this out and say this. I am so 100% grateful, forever grateful to every human that's entered my life to teach me a lesson one way or another, good or bad, shape or form. I am forever grateful. I have grown to define my boundaries, define what words mean to me, and what kind of, and I'm going to use the word narrative over and over again, because I think it's extremely important. I know it's extremely important to define that for yourself and for your 40 inches around you in your space and time. And when we were meeting each other, I'd like to think that we were both on the same page, that we have been in so many ways, shapes, and forms searching for that one partner. They can be there for us through thick and thin, but not necessarily be like, I'm here for you, for me, in a way that what can I get out of it? Like, what's my benefit out of it? And I think we came from that being like, what do you want it to be a benefit from? Like, here's where I'm at. And what do you want it to be a benefit? And I think that meeting was an extremely important one because we compared DC and Marvel to that. And it was really because like and I know nothing about this, just so you guys know, like she'll tell you, I know nothing about movies, about film, like really actually sitting and watching them because I'm not that like, I'm not invested. I'll tell you about a documentary and about like World War II, and we can have like an in-depth conversation about like philosophy and just like these books, and like we can go, but I'm a creative. I produce films and like work in the TV. Like that's what I do. I don't watch them. They don't like, the storylines aren't as in depth as I want them to be, and the world we're in is like doesn't allow that, right? So when we met, I like from your perspective on our first meeting, how did you hear about me and Project Human, number one? And then, how were we introduced, and what has your thought been since our first meeting to now? Like, did you really think we would be here when we first met?
Well, so you had touched base on that, like when you reached out to me to do this, and I was thinking about it. And so technically, that is actually our second meeting. We had a first meeting like a couple years before that. And and it was like a one-time interaction, and it was twice. And you had told me I looked really beautiful and that you wanted to work with me as a model. And then we kind of parted ways. And then kind of fast forward a couple years later, the interaction you're talking about is we had a mutual acquaintance, if you will, that kind of brought us together. And it was in that interaction where we were talking about DC and Marvel that kind of really paved the way. And I've been really thinking about that. And I don't think that we would be where we were at if we had tried to build any form of relationship or anything like that first go around. That first go around kind of just was, oh, okay, cool, you're there, I'm there, like we're doing our thing. That it was what it was. And then a bunch of things had happened to us between that real first interaction and then that second one that really just kind of set the foundation. And in that interaction, I had actually been asked by that mutual acquaintance to meet with you because you were looking for brand ambassadors. I had some experience with that. And we sat down and we were talking, and I didn't know how it was going to go because I really didn't know you very well, but I did know enough where you had a certain expectation. But I also knew myself enough at that moment where I was like, I'm not going to go into this if I have to pretend to be something that I'm not. That was really the basis of it. And you were looking for something very specific and I was looking for something very specific. And we didn't tiptoe around it. We were very candid about, this is where we are at. This is the expectation. And it was that was the basis of the foundation. That was the basis of the conversation, was we were upfront from the very beginning, and we weren't going to settle for less, and we weren't going to take each other's shenanigans, and we weren't going to do any of that. You and I had been around the block enough times with enough things that the point of where we were at, and that was, this is what I am, this is what I need, and this is what I want. And if you don't align with that, that's okay. I'm going to part ways. And I think when we stepped away from that conversation, I think you and I had a lot to think about, because I don't think either of us were prepared for that actual mutual understanding of where we were at.
No, I don't think we were. I remember sitting and going this is not, again, I'm far from being the one to toot my own horn in any shape or form. Right. I for those who know me, the least amount of credit to me is what I crave, right? I'm nope, right? But there is that level of sense of finding someone who thinks like you, or has this perception of what is required in forming a self. And like, I have this narrative now, like these words that I'm using, and I use the word required now, which has changed for us, right? Like, we had expectations, as you said, when we started this. We were like, we have expectations because we were taught expectations. What we didn't know, and as I was a little bit further along in defining what expectations were, and you said yourself, authentic self, and trying to be, and I had just gone through my rebirth, like my whole of shaving my head and like having this level of, I'm going to do something crazy. Or I might have been like right before I shaved my head too. I don't know. But like, it was in this level of like, I'm not gonna not be anything than what I am. And you have to accept me for who I am. I'm not a bad human. I'm not a bad anything. I'm just a little bit on a different thinking spectrum, or like viewing spectrum, and I'm looking for humans like me. And so when we got together and had that conversation, I was like, I have goals and I have dreams, right? Like, I have aspirations, not only for myself, but for those around me. And my life has been so bombarded, like literally with so much human, like literal human damage, that trusting human beings to have a conversation, to be candid, to be honest about where we're at, is like, we got to the level of, we've built something within us, got to and survived. We don't need you. And this is nothing personal. It's, we don't need you. But what we need is people that we can depend on to be around us, to support us, to hold us accountable, to hold us responsible for achieving our goals and for being these humans that we've set forth, right? Look, I love my little Zoom thumbs up that just popped up. That was so awesome. Like, look.
I like that it was in a bubble.
Universe talking, okay? These are amazing. Thank you. This is just exactly what we're talking about. But that's what we're talking about. So you and I walked away. I remember walking away and thinking, like, I need her on my side no matter what, because I love your bluntness. Like, I love how honest and blunt you are about who you are, right? Like, you've never shied away from that. And that was what always, from what I've heard around it, we call it the hard ass. That's what I'm called all the time. Like, I'm a hard ass. I'm an asshole. I'm like, again, pardon our French, but it's just what it is. Difficult. And too much is the big word. But I want to understand the situation I'm in. Not only the situation I'm in, but the relationship I'm in, what we're working towards, what is like the intention of my action. Because if I don't understand it, if I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing and how it needs to be done and what the purpose of it is and who's involved and I get it, all those, like, if we don't have that conversation, then again, we're leaping into a whole bunch of unknowns that then we go with the expectation. Well, I expected you to know this. I expected you to do this. I expected you because that's the expectation. So through our relationship, we walked away going like, I think we need to refine the word expectations so that we can have a more defined relationship. And then we started with the requirements. Okay, well, what do I need? Like you said, well, here's what I need and here's what I need. Well, what do I want? Well, here's what I want and here's what I want. And what's required now? Like, what's required? It's not what's expected, but what's required to achieve this goal. Because expectation to us, as we've learned it, and I'll say this in our literal, you'll know what I mean by when I say that word. That's how I equate expectation. So when I think of expectation, I think of it in this terms. Brandy and I have this way of, we know that we're literal people, but in two different terms. My literal, right, and this is how I see expectations, and you'll understand this because it's not, like, it really means exactly that. Like, expectation is Adela and Brandy's literal versions, because it's so, it explains everything. So she went to a concert, and we're on the phone, and there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. This was during COVID time, this was during, like, all this crazy mayhem, and we're on the phone, and she's like, this is ridiculous, back and forth, and she's like, well, I'm just gonna walk to my car, and she's like, it's literally right across the street. And in my head, literally across the street means like 2 miles down the road, like 2 blocks down the road, like we're gonna walk around and like have to walk up the stairs, and like I'm used to jungle warfare. 2 miles, like it's just was not reality, right? She literally walked across the street. She was like, okay, I'm in my car. I'm like, what do you mean? It was like 30 seconds. She goes, it was literally across the street. I'm like, what do you mean across the street? And that was when I realized that that's what expectations are like.
And now we're like, do you mean like your literal or my literal? Like,
what?
Because which one? Like, are we walking 12 blocks or are we literally like across the street?
Because again, my expectation of literal of across the street is that you're going to walk 2 blocks to get to where I need you to go. She's like, across the street.
No, and what makes it even more funny is like I also was like, oh, I have coffee in my car, and you're like, oh, you're like, okay, whatever, and I was like, no, Adela, I have coffee in my car, and I pull out like a whole bottle of Califia cold brew, and she was like no, you literally
opens it with like wrap on top of it still. Yeah.
And she's like, no, you literally met across the street and in your car. And I was like, yeah.
So that's when I learned that expectations are like our versions of literally. Is it Brandy expectation literally, or Adela Brandy, or like Adela expectation literally? So we had to define and refine a lot more solid boundaries and strategies to be able to communicate. Like that's literally what we had to do. So we have requirements. What's required? Well, action is required. So what are the steps we have to take to get to where we go? Okay, well, we have to meet. We have to get Brandy literal, not Adela literal, but Brandy literal, and have that. Like that was the requirement. But like I didn't know that, right? Like, and I say this in a funny way. We talk about this story now in this way, in such a beautiful way too for me, because like that's when we started to really realize that like we had a different way of thinking and viewing things, and we had to talk it out, right? Like we would laugh about it and talk it out, and I'm like, I didn't know, like that's stupid, and she's like, that's stupid, I didn't know. And it wasn't meant anything personal. And I have a saying, right, that I've said for the longest. It's nothing personal, meaning nothing towards you as you, the other person, the other entity, the other being, but it's personal. So I decide whether I take anything personal. I decide whether I am willing to, like, again, any of your personal come to my personal. So it's nothing personal. It doesn't have to be your personal. And so we started talking about that. And so when we would talk about these moments where we just did not see eye to eye, or we were literally 2 fields apart, we'd be like, time out, Adela, time out. Like, I need you to come to my place. Or I'd be like, Brandy, I need you to like...
bring me back down, because Adela can't just be wandering off 12 blocks down the street.
We have this like rule, okay, anytime we're on a trip, anytime we take Adela on an adventure, that Adela's not allowed to leave without a chaperone. And we talk about Adela in a third person because she really is, and I really am, like it really is, that is all that is. Take it, you will understand it as you get to know us. But she has this thing of where she's like, ooh, La La Land for some reason. And then it's like dark alley. We can get somewhere a lot faster, because I like to be fast, efficient, productive, and like, how do I do the best with the most and with the least that I have? Like, that's my motto, right? Like, what do we got? Right. What can we do with the resources we have? And how do we make it the best thing we can do while saving time and money, and yet producing the greatest thing we can produce? And normally I don't think of anything other than that. And then like safety.
I'm like, Adela, we're not getting stabbed in the back alley.
Right. And then like my husband too, or like people they'll like tell them, he'll be like, just bring her back safe. Like, just don't let her, like, put her on a leash. Yeah. Like it's a requirement.
They're like, let's just walk across the street, and I'm like, Adela, there's a car coming. We can't.
I'm like, but look, the creative. I'm like, look, the photo will be great. The moment will be great. I'm like, I just get so. But see, like, those are having humans around you who compliment you on a level that's not, like, again, offensive or taken in any way. Like, if I get pulled off the street, or if I get a muzzle pull on me, like, I understand why. Like, you are doing this for my best interest. But
like,
it
this
goes
is
same
not
for
the hill to
you. Like,
die
I
on.
know how much rabid
Yeah.
you can be. Like, I know exactly where you could go. So it's like, if I need to put you down, like, I know what I need to do. Like,
If no, I like that about us too, because it's like, is this the hill you're willing to die on? And you're like, Brandy, no, Brandy. Like we just like, okay, we're the same, but we're very different at the same time. And it's like, I can speak Adela and you can speak Brandy, and then sometimes we gotta just really meet in the middle. But we really have to just know each other enough to know which we do of like, are you sure this is the hill you're wanting to die on? Like,
and support
just
each
tell
other on
me.
the hill. Like, if that's
Right.
the hill you're willing to die on, like, I'll be there to support you. That doesn't mean like I'm willing to go to the hill. And like, that's the thing. Like, so let's like clarify that, because I think we've had this
Yeah.
because we've had a
Yes.
hill we've both had to overcome,
Yeah.
and it's a mutual hill. It's multiple mutual hills we've had to overcome, and we've
Hmm.
had to make
Yeah.
decisions of like, in even in
Yeah.
our spaces, to go like, listen, I'm not comfortable with this or where you're at in the hill you're on, and I'm willing
Hmm.
to pull out because this is not willing, like, this is not my
Yeah.
battle, but I'm gonna support you in however you can. Like, do you need ammunition, or do you need me to
Hmm.
like show up, or like bring you water? Like, what do you need me to do in a way that like doesn't put me in the battle? Like, I understand that I may not like, and I get that I'm still supporting
Hmm.
you and I'm there, but like, if I can support you from afar and be there, and even just
Hmm.
in like venting or emotional support,
Right.
mental support, and guiding you, maybe out of all of that, I can turn you away from the hill, because it's not a hill worth for you dying too. But it's not
Hmm.
my decision. My decision is that I'm going to support you if I decide, as a human and as a partner in my life, and I'm going to be loyal to
Hmm.
you, and I'm going to make sure that you become the best version of you that you can. But that doesn't mean I'm going to condemn you for the
Hmm.
decisions that you make. You have to learn from them. Like, and you
Hmm.
and I think you know which, like, the one hill we're talking about
Yeah, I
particularly.
do.
Okay, and
Yep.
it's like, that hill was a very hard hill, because like they're two different relationships to that hill, how that hill was built, and how that hill,
Hmm.
like, to what level, where it might have been easier for me or you to pull out, to not be, or whatever, where the other side might not have. And like, we had to understand like the depths of that connection, and what it meant, and just kind of support that. So my question to you now is through these last 2-3 years that you've had, like, you've been my guinea pig through Project Human, because like, I've believed in
Hmm.
Project Human since it
Yeah.
saved my life. Like, I remember sitting in DC on the fields with my son, and recognizing that like, everything in my life that I have ever foreseen, ever been through, is not necessarily like it's my fault, right? Like, it's not my fault that I was born. I didn't have any control over my roots. I didn't have any control over the first 10-15 years of my life, because I did not, like, that was my parents, that was my environment, that was society, that was my school, that was my friends, that was like, that was not my mind, because
Hmm.
I was born not mindless, but I did not have that conscious mind, right? Like, I had subconscious things I needed, to be cared for, to be loved, to be nurtured, to be understood in some shape or form. But to have a language, or this level of, I didn't have it. So when I went through the war, and then when we came to America, and when I came here, and I just was trying to understand everything, like, I didn't begin to even see myself until I was 28. And I think about 27, 28 is when we met, in that kind of time frame,
Hmm.
29 or something like that.
Yeah. Hmm.
um and I remember 28 being like my rebirth, basically my way. Like, I didn't do
Hmm.
my shaping of my head or any of that stuff till later, but like, my rebirth, where that was my last suicide attempt, and I had made a decision, like a conscious decision, to live, to be here, that my life was worth this existence, and worth this pain, and worth this trouble, and worth the war, worth all the things that I couldn't control, because I could control my breath, and I was worth the fight now, right? I didn't know
Hmm.
how, I didn't know what to do, but I knew I was worth it. So I remember having that thought and going through it. And when Project Human came about, like, that's the essence of that, is that we fight for that. So I guess going back to my question to you is how has that idea of our, like, with through our relationship, because that's what, like, my core is humanity, is
Hmm.
everything. And I remember when we talked on our first meeting, I was like, if you can't talk human, be human, have the understanding that human is what I'm here for. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
care about your, again, it goes back to how I'm going to be interpreted, but I don't give two shits about your personal, like, what you do on your 24-hour a day, like, basis, because that's on
Mm-hmm.
you. But I care about you as a human being and how you're flourishing and how your essence is going to be, because as a human, you make the human collective and the conscious mind of like ideas and
Mm-hmm.
how we influence and how we move people forward. So how has Project Human, and again this idea of self-value and worth, may, like, how has that influenced you? What impact has that had on you? Because like I said, I know what position and message I'm in for now and where I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to pursue this, and you've been that guinea pig of like, I'm gonna have you test these things out, try these things out, Brandy. Like, I know it doesn't make sense, but like, think of it this way. And so like, and there's been a lot of
Mm-hmm.
conversations, a lot of
A
coaching
lot.
like
Yeah.
when we talk about Project Human, it's about coaching through life, like through
Mm-hmm.
experiences of life. This isn't therapy sessions. Like, we
Right.
do venting, and but coaching through the vent of moment. And like, so how has that process versus what you had tried before, you know, help? Where, like, what has these, because a lot has changed,
A lot. Yeah.
so what's your perspective?
So when we had met in that second meeting, or first second meeting, whatever we're gonna call it, um, I had just come. I was think that was like 3 months after my grandma just passed, and I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I fully understood my state of being in that time. I don't know if I understood my own mental health. I think I remember having a conversation with my sister and realizing after my grandma had passed, all these things were happening to me that I didn't quite understand. And I think it was in that moment that I realized that I did struggle with some mental health stuff. I struggled with some anxiety. My ADHD was becoming very erratic, and I had all these things happening. And I think for me, it was like I said, I was realizing that I had gone my whole life being the person that wanted to support the people who were already vocal about their mental health struggles. But never once did I think myself, until my grandma passed, that had been struggling with that. And so when we first met, like, that was actually my journey to actually starting to realize what was actually happening to me. Like, what was happening in that moment with the grief from my grandma passing, to like stuff that happened to me as a kid, and like just all the things that I had ever experienced. So like for me, when I became part of Project Human, it was me starting my own journey of figuring out those aspects of myself. It was figuring out my fundamental, like, needs, requirements, and wants that have changed dramatically since that then. And they change, all the time. If you asked me that question 3 years ago, my answer would be very different, because my view on the whole situation is always changing. And you always ask me that question anytime we're doing anything Project Human related. And it's never the same, because there's always things happening in my life and interactions with people that I have that change my perspective for the better. And so then I probably would have said, I just want to help people, and people are my superpower. I have an innate ability to understand people without them actually saying anything. But now it's more of, I want to understand myself and my view of how I see people and how I see all of that. But like, now it's less about what can I do for Project Human to help people, as more of like, what am I trying to get out of Project Human for myself? Like, what is my purpose within this? Because there's a lot I've learned. Like, yes, I am the guinea pig. Like, I am working the program. Like, I'm a prime example of like, this works. But I would say this only works because I never gave up, and I never said, and like, I never said this was too much. And even if I did, I still kept trying, because like, and maybe that's just how I'm built. But I never fought the process, and
Yeah.
I don't fight the process. And I call you sometimes and I'm like, this is so stupid. And like, I'm not seeing this. And it's like, I will have so many moments where I don't know what I'm navigating in that moment. I do know something's happening. I don't know what that is. And sometimes I just need to vent it out and I'm fine and then I can be on my way. But a lot of times when we are talking, it's because I'm trying to understand something that's happening within that I
Right.
don't quite get. Or I'm trying to heal something that is coming about because I've moved past the last piece that I needed to heal, and so now I'm onto something else. And so I would say now I'm trying to look more at Project Human as what can I personally get out of it. Not, and that's not to be selfish, but that's
No, but
to,
that's exactly what
because
it's for. Like
right.
our whole motto is that Project Human does not work if the human itself can't work. And that doesn't mean like you're going out and putting 9 to 5 work job. Like that's just not what that
Yeah.
means. It's functionality. It's how do
Hmm.
you become a functioning human for your best potential. And it like
Hmm.
Project Human's an idea. Like
Yeah.
it's this belief, okay, that you are so worth this
Hmm.
time to take and assess of who you are. Because for personally, for both of us, we spent 25 to 30 years of our lives being molded and shaped by our parents. And this is for everybody. Like, think about it. This is for any single human being. You are molded and shaped
Hmm.
by your environment, by your social construct, by your economic situation, by your family,
Hmm.
and your whole fundamental like cultural belief. Okay, you are shaped
In
that way,
society.
right?
Yeah.
So, but you as a conscious individual independent human being can completely be like 100% different from what you have been brought up as. And navigating that, like, that has been my thing. Like, I have had to literally, and we've had this personal conversation, a little bit of what I found out about my life and about my family and about my like culture and about my history, where I've been like
Hmm.
so gung-ho in so many ways, right? And then you find out some truths about it and you have to face and hold it and recognize some things, and then you're like, do I want to be responsible for those things that I don't agree with, that I never agree with? But if I want to be responsible, the way I'm responsible is by continuing and being in completely like holding on to this narrative of going home. And I say this for personal reasons. You'll understand this. Like, for those of you who know me and following me, this is not a hit to myself in any
Hmm.
shape or form. This is just the truth of owning it, like the responsibility.
Hmm.
But my whole life has been about going home and going home and going home and finding the truth and finding the honesty. And as I've gone through this process, and even as my own self Project Human, I am my own guinea pig. The assessment and the amount, like when we talk about it, like the amount of like evaluation that I do, right, and scrutiny that I hold myself accountable to. Like, everybody
Hmm.
looks at me and holds me up to this level, and I'm like, yo, I'm at the bottom of the bottom. Like, I do not
Hmm.
try to be at my level in any shape or form, like what I do, right? However, I would like for you to strive to have some level of accountability and assessment of yourself and evaluation of yourself and reflection and review, and being able to reshape and rechange your form of thinking when necessary and when required, because that
Hmm.
is how we shape and form society. It isn't by continuously believing every story and every narrative that's passed down generation to generation to generation, because we have to think about that phone game, right? It's like when
Hmm.
somebody says, and I've never played the phone game, I've just seen it played and have seen how it's played. But the lesson I got out of it, right, like you're supposed to get a lesson out of it, right, is that the first person who said the narrative and said the story, that's the story, that's the narrative, that's what it is, right? Then when someone else repeats it, just one change in a word, one change in a tone, one change in the way it is structured changes how you pass it down again and again and again. And every human being interprets, receives, and perceives information in
Hmm.
their own way. So what hits them and what makes them like, what hits their heart, right, is what they're going to attach to. So the same sentence, a different word will hit a different human, which will have a different meaning. And by the end of that, and by the time it reaches me, there's countless possibilities of the same sentence and the same story and the same narrative of what could have, would have, should have, could have happened. And like, where do I fit in? Where do I go? You're so confused. You're so conflicted about like your identity and what to believe, because you should believe your grandparents, you should believe your parents, you should believe your friends, you should believe, you know, the media, you should believe, like, there's so many, because you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And inside of you, you're like, but no, I do. I think that's one of the parts of the Project Human that I admire the most about that we've been able to create, even through this relationship that we have, is the advocacy for the self. Like, to advocate that there is an innate knowledge within you. Like, there is a know in you that you know who you are as a human being. You are either a good, conscious, creative existence that is here to do good or bad, okay? Because that's up to you. Or you're dead. Like, I don't see what else, like, you're dead.
I think so. A lot of that, I think, is masking, and I think a lot of it is just trying to break generational curses. And I do think that that is a very real thing. I think you are ever changing and trying to do that. And like, I know that that's what I'm doing. I mean, you probably know more about your family history than I actually do. And so for me, breaking that is so much more difficult because I don't know anything about how my great grandma raised my grandma and what that caused for her. And I don't know any of those things. All I know is that by the time I got to me, I had all these things happen to me, and this is who I am. And now I'm picking up the pieces and I'm having to understand that.
Yep, and process
All
that.
I process that. But all I know is at the end of the day, from the very age of like 3 years old for me, when I was like, that was like as far back as I can remember knowing who I was, I've always just been authentically me. And I don't know how to function being not that. And I think a lot of people put on this persona because that's what society tells them to do. Whether you have ADHD and you're masking or not, or you have to tone down, or your professional, being versus your home being, like you're in some way, shape, or form, you are pretending to make someone feel better. But you and I, we never pretended from day one. And so that's why it works so well for us, is because like you know exactly who I am. You know I can be an
Yes.
a-hole. You know, like I just like all the things. You know the demons within. You know the vengeance. You know the good, the bad, and it's like you knew all of that, and you see all of that, and you never once tried to change who I am. You're never once like, oh, this is Brandy. This is the version of you, even though it's not. And so I say this because friendships don't really work unless you're not pretending. And so many people will have a narrative or a version of you that you're supposed to live up to. And the second that you don't live up to that, they're like, well, why are you doing this? And you're doing this. And then you're just like, well, what the heck is happening? Well, what the
Yep.
heck is happening is that you can no longer hide, you can no longer hide those pieces. And it makes it hard for you to build and trust people when you are constantly pretending to be another version of you that's not actually you. And so like today, you have like 7 masks in the closet and you never know which one you're putting on. But all you know at the end of the day is that you don't want to be wearing that mask because
Right.
none of those versions are authentically you. And all anybody ever wants is to be authentically them and to not be put down for it. And I think that would also be another reason why I enjoy being part of Project Human, is that I want to be the example, or I want to show that like I don't care if you like me or not. Like your feelings towards me mean nothing to me. That doesn't change my narrative. That doesn't change my agenda. That doesn't change how I'm going to view and help people. Like at the end of the day, like I want to help the human just as much as you want to help the human. Don't get me wrong, sometimes I have a hard time being around humans. We all do.
Well, here's my thing, right? I think I like to separate that because there's a difference. I've said this for as long as I can remember right now, like now and then it's really been ingrained in me in the last couple of years, is that there's a difference between people and human beings. And
Okay.
you were just describing people. People who, and I say this because, and I looked at this up a long time ago, so I'm probably going to get it wrong, so don't crucify me for it. So, but look it up. It's somewhere along the lines. But people wasn't even introduced into like our narrative or of the English language until like, you know, I don't know, later in some time. But basically it's derived from, you know, the word, that means character. It means putting on masks and putting on displays and personalities. Persona, that's what it was. Persona. So personalities. And so people, when we talk about a person, a people, we are all persons and people that have had to play a role in society. We've all had to play a role. Again, I go back into our roots, a role into a movie, into a script of our life, into a production. When we're born, we are born into a production that we have no control over. Like, you walk into a set, and I'm referring to this as a creative because this is how like sometimes I've walked into sets and I have no control. I have no idea what the script is. I have no idea what the cast, what the crew is. I have no idea, but I'm required, and I say required because that's what the word is for me, but from their perspective, expected to be able to see the whole vision, provide everything about it, and know exactly what I'm supposed to do, have all the resources, have all my questions answered, and thrive and make their life the most and best, and just wham, bam, shabam, without any kind of like understanding, just being popped into it. And I say that because that has happened multiple times. And it's so overwhelming just in that situation. So imagine coming into a world and then now, like, especially with social media, when you're talking about social media and everything being so much easily accessible like this, that you can just look and be in Dubai right now. You could be in Singapore right now just by a click of a link and a click of a picture and a video. You could be anywhere in the world. To be within the self, to find the ability to create something from yourself, to face yourself, is so much harder because, like you just said, you actually have to take those masks off. You have to take them off. You have to put them up, and you have to make a decision, not a choice, because those masks are choices, right? You're making a choice every day on those masks. By choosing those masks, you're making a choice that this is the life you're going to do that, and you're making a decision on all of those masks when none of those masks are who you are. And when you decide that you're going to bet on yourself and walk out of that closet completely vulnerable, completely bare, completely just raw, and say, I'm opening my closet. Here's all of my shit out there. Like, because I had no control over it prior to today, prior to this moment. But I'm making a decision in this moment that I will be in charge of my narrative. I will be accountable for it. I will be responsible for it. And I will hold myself for any consequence. And I'm going to hope for always the good ones, because I want to be in good graces with God, and whatever you believe. This is for anybody personally, but me personally. I want to be in good graces with God. And so I'm going to do the best that I potentially can in every shape or form. And my mission, my only mission every day in life, is to have the most impactful conversation with every human I can, however that comes through. Like, right, if I can teach someone, if I can share a message of hope, inspiration, and refine your narrative, right, like through whatever it is, it doesn't matter, like, then I've done my job. Like, I have done, and I am, like, I call it compound interest, compound actions, micro, like, I'm done. And I think getting to that level of really understanding what your goal in life is, like, I don't care for anything other than that. Like, I've said it 1,001 times. I don't care. If I didn't have, and I say this if I didn't have to, because I do have to, because I am put into this position of surviving this world, and they say that God gives you the platform and you have to walk the path, and I have to walk the path. The platform's been given to me, and this is it, right? If I didn't have to walk it to complete my mission and my vision of changing the narrative of a human being within, I would literally be sitting in my little hole wall right now. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And like having no bother and like my crap little moment, Power Ranger outfit, just like, you know exactly what we're talking about, where I would be 100% all the time forever, like completely devoid of the world, because that's where I'm the most comfortable and just the happiest in. But then, as we talk about, the human element comes down to, what are we here for on a conscious level, other than if we're not here to create and inspire and make this world and this experience of human connection and relationships just like we have. Like, if I didn't have this relationship with you, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation. If I didn't have this build up accountability, I wouldn't have the confidence to come out of my comfort zone, right? Like, there's so many benefits to having people, and I say people now because those people around you learn what their humanity is if you are a true human. But then the benefit of those people teach you your humanity. You can teach them theirs as well. And then finding the humans. And I say this, I am one in a billion. I really am. But I also believe that you are too, because there's billions of us. So if you can find 5 of your human billion minds that think and feel and are like in the same level of like mission, it doesn't mean it's exactly the same. Like, we have this thing at Project Human that we answer the questions of how, what, where, when, who, and why. And if 3 of those questions can be answered and like we can dwell on with the idea, like it's a good idea to go, because we can fill in the rest of the blanks. Like, those to us are like a little bit. But if only 2 or 1 are like answerable, we're like, nah. But we apply that to ourselves in life, like to whatever decision we're going to make, who, what, where, when, how, and why. And if only 1 of those can be answered and we're so adamant about it, maybe it's not the time or the place to be focused on it. Maybe you need to put it away and then answer the question. Like, look at the things and the tasks, the missions in your life that you're doing, that you're completing, that you already have so many of those questions answers. You're just not willing to come out of your shell because you're not comfortable. And I say that because this is me. I have so many of my answered, and I haven't gotten to that level until now because it wasn't comfortable. I wasn't comfortable with my narrative. I wasn't comfortable with my being because I was still trying. And you know this more than anybody, really. The perception of me that is out in the world is so different than what I am. It's also very true in a lot of ways, right? Like, it's very true in so many ways. Like, I am very hard and very rigid and very strict. I'm very like factual and blunt and raw. Like, I am. But I'm also not a dictator. Like,
funny that you say that, because like,
and so I've had to work to get to this level, just to fight that perception, because like I know what I am, but I'm also, those are just labels.
I want to be honest about something. Well, I'm always honest about something. There's lots of sayings that I say. And one of them's let me be honest, and I'm already honest. But anyway, we have been in the same circle for like the film community and just local projects and things like that for quite some time. And I will say that from my perspective, people have a very unique view of who you are, and it is nothing to actually who you are. And it's almost comical in a way, because it kind of proves the point of this is how they want to view you, this is the box that they want to put you in, without even putting forth any effort to actually truly understand that. And like, you know, we've had some pretty close mutual acquaintances as well. And, you know, I know from, you know, perspective and things like that, that they've viewed you a very type of way, and but never once actually gave you the time of day, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Because if you, and I say this for the sheer fact that that is how we are just with anybody, is that we are so willing to put people in these boxes because this is how we view them, because of whatever reason that has to do with us and nothing to do with them. When in reality is that that is not who that person actually is. And if you just simply took a step back and put forth some effort to understand that person, to have that conversation, you would know. And I say that because it, for me, in the last 3 years and getting to know you and just knowing how well we work together, It's not like, and so I have nothing else to do but laugh because like I know who you actually are. I know all the things. I know that I know all your takes. I know all the hills you're willing to die on, all of that. Um, but it's nothing of how people view you. And I can't speak to like how people view me. And that's fine. But I will say that you you are a very unique human, and you believe with your whole being in this project and other human beings. And I could say so many other really awesome things about you. Um, but I just I want us to be the example to change how people view other people. Also, my computer's about to die, so can we pause really quick?
I
Okay.
mean, yeah, this is yeah, go do your thing.
Okay.
Um,
I just gotta plug my charger in really quick.
well, while you're doing that, I'll just say my piece on that. And again, it goes back into wasn't again, it isn't about getting credit and all the good things, none of that. But it is about having the conversation about how we view people and having this perception of judging a book by its cover and just by rummaging through a few pages and reading a few quotes or reading a few pieces without actually getting the context of the story. And even if you do get the context of the story, at the end of the day, the decision is yours. How you are going to view and what you're going to accept from that person and what that perception is. And that's something I've had to really learn, because my whole life has been about pleasing every single other human being and making sure that they are, like, literally, this is the first year I've taken where I'm like not pleasing anyone. Like, just so y'all know, I'm not, and Brandy will vouch for that, like, I'm not pleasing anyone but myself.
Mm-mm.
And it has been a really transformative year because I've had to unlearn so many emotional traps and obligations that I have set because I didn't know any better. I've only known what I have been taught. And knowing that I have set that and I can unteach myself is what I want us to be able to do. And what I think we've been doing with our relationship is unteaching that. And I want us to, even with this podcast, with the artist within, again, the whole reason why it's look, you guys, this has been a work in progress for over 3.5, 4 years now. The idea of me doing a podcast, and she'll vouch, I have been talking about it. Everybody has been, when are you doing it, Adela? When is it coming? At the end of the day, it comes when you are ready and you have your narrative defined, when your solid foundation is out there, when you're ready to be crucified for what you say, for who you are, for what you stand for. And at that time, I was not ready. I didn't have my armor. I didn't have my resources. I didn't have my foundation. I didn't have the humans that I do now, that I can call, that I can be with, that they can be like, I got you, Adela, like, no matter what, no questions asked, because they know who I am and they know what I stand for, and they know that my narrative is not going to be defined by someone else. And to me, and I say this especially between the relationship between us, because we have Icarus is what I'm going to say. I'm just going to say that, in which it was, I have to say it because which it was that I control Brandy so much. And because that's one of the perceptions, when in all reality, she has to manage and control me in all ways and shapes.
It's really funny.
And yet the perception is that I have her on a leash and that, like, I'm the one that's like, whatever, and that's not it. And I say that again because this was something that happened in a social public setting, so I'm allowed to say that. And that conversation happened, and I think that was really funny in how people perceive these relationships when you don't know what they are. And we do this all the time. And I learned that we speak words so much, but we do not understand what the word means. So we're willing to just trash so much, just like we throw away so much trash, and we're such trashy people.
Such trashy people.
Like, we're such trashy people, my gosh, that we're willing to just trash anything and everything without ever actually digging into the trash and seeing what the trash is about, because we're too bougie for that. Like, ew. So yeah. So I had to bring in Carissa up because that was just the point of that, of control, as again, those perceptions come in, and I think that speaks to us being able to change this new way of thinking, right? Like, every individual human being is so important on this planet Earth. Like, what we do and impact on the smallest scale every single day and every single moment makes so much more impact than we ever realize. Like, and you and I have talked about this, the amount of countless interactions we've had with other humans, other people, and just how we've able to manage and change a perspective, whether we've been in a bad position, they've been in a bad position, whatever. And now we get to like see it from a whole new perspective. When bad things happen, we get to navigate it differently. We get to process it differently and better. And I think we only get better from here. And that goes back into what individuals can contribute to the whole building of our human society, just by being honest with who they are and being accountable and responsible. And those are the words that we don't want to take on because they're so scary. And I say that because I was scared of those words too. Like, you were scared of those words too before we even started all these, like, accountability, responsibility. And now it's like, no, it's all my fault. Nope, it's all my fault. And not that, like, I don't give credit where credit's due. So just remember, credit is given where credit's due. But when I look at the situation, and I have the saying of, I think all things considered, it's either good or bad. I either did a good job or I didn't. And all things considered, I am 90% of the time doing a really, really good job. And I have to give myself credit for that. The 10% of the time that I'm not, could have been my fault. Like, in reality, yes. Could it have been other people's fault and put me in a situation where I'm at and doing all that stuff? Yes, absolutely, 100%. However, it was also my fault for believing and being in that situation and continuing to stay as long as I did. And that percent of the time, I have to take accountability for myself and I have to take responsibility, because if I'm going to be 100% honest, 100% here, it requires 100% of no lying. Like no lying. Why were you even there, Adela? What was the point? Why?
Also, I just need you to know I'm having some tech issues. I think my outlet might be broken.
Oh no.
Yeah, which is odd because, also, sorry about the glare, but yeah, no, I was working last night and now I gotta go figure out if it's my outlet or if it's my charger. It's my outlet.
Well, it looks like you're gonna have to talk to your apartment complex.
Oh, snap.
Welcome to, you guys, like, this is the reality of having to now, like, real life world problems, like, added to the list of all the other shit she's just had to go through, and we've had to, like, navigate. And, like, how do you repaint and restructure and reprioritize things that come up in life? And something as simple as an outlet is not as simple as an outlet to someone else that it may be to someone else. And so perspective is everything.
Well, I just don't even know what happened to my outlet because my outlet was working last night. And now it's all like...
Are you sure it's not the switch?
You know... let me go see some... Just to be clear, if it is the switch... I don't know why the fuck that this is like this, and I will explain in a second. Okay? So, y'all can just come with me as I explain this. So, Adela.
Because they have safety switches, like, on your lights that they do and they put.
But can you see my switch? Yes. Okay, but this, to my knowledge, is not connected to the outlet that is all the way over here.
But you didn't know that because you didn't use that outlet before until you just rearranged your room.
Okay, but why?
Welcome to, like, a real life conversation, you guys, of how we process everything.
But why would that be connected to that one when it's connected to the one that's behind my couch that is, like,
because they'll
here?
do, like, 2 or 3 of them at a time on 2 walls, because I have that with on mine too.
That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life.
I mean, I'm not saying it was smart people who made the decisions to do stuff. Have you seen how the roads are built? Have you seen how our infrastructure is? I'm not saying smart people are doing this. I'm just saying you should try it out. And I'm not saying I'm just saying in this moment you weren't that smart either.
Because logically that wouldn't be a thing. Why is that a thing? Why? Why?
Because it's a safety thing. I don't know. I'm not an electrician. I don't know. You know what you should do? You should find us an electrician and we can have that conversation. Excuse me, so we can solve this problem, okay? Because excuse me, I'm dying. Yes, you should.
You know what?
That's what you should do, and then we can and then you can hash this out, like, for real, and we can figure out the artist's mind of why that was designed the way it was and the paint was painted that way. But until you know that that's actually what that is, you should plug it in and see.
Well, now that I know that that's the thing, now
But
I
you
can
don't
have
know.
the
You
lamp
didn't
over
plug
here.
it in yet.
I did, and I did turn on the light switch, and now my Alexa went on. Why is that a thing? Like,
you guys, so for real though, like, this is the level of, like, when we talk about getting to this frustration and stuff, like, we role play to the level where you have to be willing. Again, it's
okay, I just need you to know.
It's just personally somebody's going through something and they need to figure out and they need to understand, and you need to just role play and be the bad guy. Like, be the bad guy.
I just need you to know. I just need you to know that I'm Adela in this situation of, like, why is this a thing? Why? And you're over here like, because, and then you're Brandy, and you're like, Brandy's like, because of this, and it isn't, and Adela's all like, this is stupid. Okay, I'm Adela right now. This is stupid. Why?
Because
how many lights need to be plugged into these two outlets that you plan on you controlling with one light switch?
So that you can really ruin other people's lives. I know. Listen, we have on ours right now, like, because our light switch controls, like, our TV, and it controls, like, everything in there. Just because of the setup, like, we have tape over all that, because I'm looking for the one that's the middle. It's just hard to find stuff. So anyway, we have tape over it so that we can remind ourselves not to flip the light switch, because we'll just mess everything up. So no, I mean, I understand the situation you're in. I'm just playing the devil's advocate because it's fun.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you, it's stupid. It's stupid.
Well,
like, why?
Well,
what if I had my
why is the only question you're asking right now, and I really don't care about it, so...
Because it doesn't make sense.
No.
Okay? Does not make sense. I don't function well if I don't have a reason that actually makes sense. Like, someone please tell me the functionality of it. I
bet you in the comments somebody's gonna tell you that, and then you're gonna be like, oh, so read the comments. I bet you somebody's already, like, right now, once we post this, you guys, please let her know, and then in the comments let her know this answer so that she can follow, like, because I don't care anymore about it, and she's Brandy at this point where she doesn't care about it either. Well, like, not she, but that's her thinking where the point is in there.
They're gonna say something, and I'm gonna be like, that's stupid. Like, that doesn't help anyone.
I know, but it's not the tangent and the hill to die on.
I just need someone to make it make sense, because not the logic is not logicking for me right now.
Okay, well, there's a lot of logicking that can't logic with you. It's just you can't take on all the logic of not logicking. Like, we have so much, like, on a bigger scale of that's not logicking right now.
I just don't know what to do. And
we've talked about it a little bit. We're not going to get into it right now. It's not the time for that. We're not going to get canceled before we even get started. What I'm just saying is there's a lot of unlogicking that's happening right now, and a lot of uncommon sense that's happening in the world. That is why having common sense conversations is really important, and understanding that your being is in control of your actions, your response, and your consequences, regardless of what the hell is happening around you. Because at the end of the day, you can't control anything. You can only control you and what hill you're willing to die on.
I'm just going to say this changes, like, the whole layout of my apartment. I don't know what to do with this information. Like, I genuinely don't know. Like, I didn't know this was a thing for the entire year that I spent here until last night, when I decided to rearrange my living room and now have access to this outlet, because the outlet has been blocked by my couch for an entire year, just being all on its own. And now all of a sudden I have this new information that I don't know what to do with.
Welcome to a brain short circuit thing while we're, like, in the process of where everything's fine and the brain short circuits, and this is really the most important thing in somebody's life. Like, it really happens. This is what but as we let's I'm losing track now too. Let me look at my note real quick. Let me get back into my relationship and real quick, and we'll leave the
That's
outlet
fine.
to
That's
the
fine.
electricians. Okay, so we met. We have a great conversation. We're here 3 years in, and we've done some
Hmm.
amazing projects. We've done some pretty cool things. There's something that I've been working on, and that I got you to be a part of. The Parachute Goddess project that I'm going to be going out to again, you guys. We are on book 6 at Barnes and Nobles, and we are getting ready to rock out some more. I'll be back with the team and the crew coming up in the fall, and I can't wait. So many new things will be coming with that. But I got you to come out to one of the events, one of the days, I
Hmm.
believe. So tell me your experience. Because Project Human and the Parachute Goddess Project, once they did, like, we have the same mission. And the Parachute Goddess
Hmm.
Project is a photography experience that takes you around the world, where you wear these amazing parachutes that have been donated and have been retired and have an amazing storyline to them. Each of them have its own unique story. And
Hmm.
the concept of it is, and one of the things I got out of it was that the weight of these things is real. Like, it's real. Like, the physical weight of these things is real. And having this ability to carry this weight and channel it into an artistic expression where you can really become something bigger and recognize, like, how frail and how small you are in your physical form compared to this big thing, and how,
Hmm.
like, the world is so big too, and just, like, the weight of everything on your small frame to still be able to create something beautiful, right? Like, it's phenomenal experience. So that's kind of wanted to give you a little background to that, because there's parachutes,
Hmm.
there's a photo shoot, there's like a lot, and there's fluffing, and sometimes there's cactuses in hands. Like, it's not as fun on the back end of it, like when you're doing stuff. I mean, it's great, I love it, it's fun, but
Hmm.
the whole experience of you being a model, because you've done both sides, and I've done
Hmm.
both sides,
Yeah.
so I get to speak on that. But
Hmm.
experience that. What was that like? Because those are the kind of things that we do with Project Human, is we get along with partners and brands and create these
Hmm.
experiences that tell a story and a mission that is really inspiring.
Um, I think it's a two-part answer because I really was there specifically for Danny, the girl. She and her mom were doing this photo shoot, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how she's doing now or what her state is. But I was there because you had gotten asked to be the assistant for the girl, and then you had asked me to come because they needed an extra person, and that's really why I was there. So before we can talk about my experience with it, like, we have to talk about why I was actually there, and what my role was. And I'm going to be honest with you, I did it for the human and for the girl. And when I knew what was going on, like, I didn't do it for my experience. I didn't do it for a motive of, like, oh, hey, maybe I get to do all of this. Like, that was not why I was there at all. Like, and even when I put a parachute on and I got to do all of it, like, I don't think I looked at it as, oh, like, oh, I'm doing this. This is for me. This is this. Like,
Right.
um,
Like, because
I
really
just,
her story, like, and we're gonna
yeah.
link in here, I'll make sure I link her story so you guys can follow it, because I don't want to
Hmm. Yeah.
excuse me, I don't want to misrepresent or misnarrate any of her story, because it's really
Right.
important.
It is.
But it is a big health story, and a journey that she
Hmm.
is fighting, and she is just this little human is a freaking warrior.
Like, I would say that it it was about her. It wasn't about anything else. Like, I'm gonna be really honest. It doesn't matter about me being in the parachute. It doesn't matter about that because it was about her. And yes, I got the chance to put a parachute on and do all of that, but I still stand by it wasn't about me in that moment. Like, Um, I like this thing that your phrase is, it's nothing personal, it's personal. Mine is, it's not all about you. And in this case, it wasn't about me. And I think I have a hard time articulating my experience on it because I wasn't looking at it from my experience. I was looking at what had happened that day and what
So
was
then, so
happening with
then,
the
what's your interpretation and what your perspective is of what the Parachute Goddess Project as a whole is? Then, what experience it can bring to? Because again, you and I get to do this for not, not necessarily for a living, like living, but we
right.
get to do this for a living. Like this is something that we get to create. This is who we are. This is our essence. But humans who are struggling on a level that's just really something you and I wouldn't like we complain again, we say vent and bitch about stuff, but we complain about
Right.
like the smallest shit. So when someone's really going through what they're going through and their story is literally life or death, and then they
I
get to experience something that you and I get to take for granted, like genuinely get to take for granted,
right.
like
I
what's your
think
perspective of that?
well, I think it's a very humbling experience. I think to see that little girl and just to hear her story and just to physically see it, like, and I think that that's what sets it apart is that in that moment, you know, Project Human is usually more focused on the mental health aspect, which we all know is an invisible illness and or disease or whatever condition, whatever word you want to use. It's the point is it's invisible. In this case, you physically got to see it. You physically got, but then it wasn't even just the girl. It was her mom and
And
the
it was the
toll
whole
that it,
family, her
and it
sister
was,
support, like
and just but like the way that the mom just broke down crying when she didn't even know that she was putting, and just
yep.
like the whole, and it was a humbling experience because it puts into reality and perspective a struggle that is happening.
Yep.
But then it sheds light on that relationship with that mom and that daughter and that pain that mom is going through, but then the pain of the girl. And it's like it's human
On
emotion at its rawest, at its finest, its vulnerability. And then it really just knocks you on your ass and makes you realize that like there are far, far more things going on that impact us in a deep level. But it's also realizing that like the harsh reality of that is that that girl does not have very much time.
no.
And it was in that moment that like we got to bring her some form of happiness, excitement. It was a beautiful day out. She got to put a nice dress on. Yes, she was in pain, but that battle of pain, she just fought through it like, oh my.
So like every time we're out now, like we're on set, right? Like when we go out there and every
Yeah.
time anybody complains, like we just look at them and go like, you ain't got nothing to say,
Like
because like
you could just see it in her face, the pain that she was in, but the determination that she had. Like she
she was
wanted to
so
be there. She
determined to
want
create. Like her little artist in her was like, I am here to make my mark and I am here to make my stamp and I'm going to, and like when we talk about these
right.
parachutes, like, and
Yeah.
these treks we take humans on, like we're not taking it just because
Mm-hmm.
we don't make this journey easy. It isn't.
Mm-mm.
Part of the creative process is just as beautiful as the creation of a human being, and that's what art is all about. Like that is the
Mm-hmm.
most beautiful thing about art and how it interchanges within who we are and why it's so important to us is because it literally
Mm-hmm.
shows how a human is formed, like and like the struggles that a human is willing to go through despite its own like failings, right, or its own inabilities or its own limitations, that they're willing to travel all that, like the steps
Mm-hmm.
she had to climb, the weight the we all had to carry and care, like, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody that came through to help at that moment. It was, again, those experiences, when we talk about creating things for human beings, it's about it being able to
Mm-hmm.
immerse, like you said, into an emotional level that ties the physical and the spiritual and opens up
Mm-hmm.
a doorway to the conscious. Like that made you recognize why what we do and how we do it and what level, like why it's so important, and then
Mm-hmm.
why the collaborations with the people that we have,
Mm-hmm.
why they're so important on the human level, that like it does not matter about anything else. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about anything else but that human level. Like what is the best that we can do for that one moment, that one experience that brings the most emotion, the most joy, whether it's sadness, joy, pain, like I don't care, but emotion. And the reason for that is because you feel. It makes you recognize your humanity. And it makes you see that, like, you're not a robot. You're not dead. You're not incapable of change, of seeing things from a different perspective, of humbling yourself, of recognizing when you are in the wrong and what you can do better, and recognizing that you're worth that, like, worth redemption, you know, like, and those moments and experiences like that teach you that. And so, gratefulness, right?
Yeah, which I'm practicing a lot of right now, but we can hop back to that in a second. So to kind of round back to your question, I would, like I said, I don't look at that experience as anything for me in particular, because the reason why I wasn't there wasn't for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
we didn't have,
well, you and I work really, really differently in a way that when we go do something, we have an intention, whether it's an intention for ourselves or an intention for others. And when we are set on the intention for others, like, we genuinely turn the part off where it has to do anything with us, and it has to do with everything with the other people. But when we're there to learn, like, we'll incorporate and be able to simultaneously do the same thing. But when we're not, and you weren't there for that, like, you were genuinely there to support me and to support Leilana and to support this moment, because we needed that support, because it was such a extremely important moment for human beings, that, and to create this moment of bonding for a family that, again, otherwise might not have had the opportunity to experience in a shape or form, for something, and we wouldn't have the experience, you know, to do either. So
I would say two other things on it would be, one, I felt honored to be asked to be part of that experience, because in this case, for this young girl, it had to be a very set people that knew what was happening and what was taking place. And I know for Leilana, like, she this was very important to her, and for her to ask you, she knew it was going to be executed right. But her and I had not really met fully in that moment. And so, like, I know for her, there was a level of trust that she had to put in me that was probably maybe a little scared for her, because of how important of that. And so, but the way that she trusts you, and then the way that you know me, and, you know, there's an honor that comes in that. And it was like, I knew I wasn't going to let anybody down, but it was still, if it makes sense on what I'm trying to explain, it was a level of hierarchy of just, in and of itself, of, like, you, Leilana, and myself.
Well, we knew our places. I think that was the thing. Part of that is, like, I mean, you said, I wanted to just touch back really quick on what you said about her experience. Like, we both have had these experiences where we've done these levels of shoots for different, and projects for different reasons and different meetings. And we've both had experiences with people on set. And I say people because they've been characters. They've told us one thing, and then they come on and it's a whole different story. It's a whole different mask, right? And for a whole different reason. And having to have experienced that on multiple levels, especially when you have invested, and we're not talking just about invested time, we're talking about invested money, resources, and trust into not only yourself but other people to be able to show up and do that. And when I give my word, I'm like, I give my word. And when I put my stamp of approval on people, like, I'm putting my stamp of approval on people, because I've worked hard not only to train myself to be the best of what I do, but I've also worked hard to train those around me. So when we get taken advantage of, and you've been in the same position, it's very hard to get, again, when I go, I'm bringing somebody on, trust me, I know you've trusted me before, and I have not delivered, and it sucks for me not to deliver, because, like, I brought these people on, you know, like, I've done this thing and it was not good. So it's like I'm asking her to trust me again and building that relationship back up again. Not that our we understand where we stand, just like you and I understand that we know that it isn't, like, we'll have it personally one-on-one, that's that, like, the other outside doesn't matter. However, there is still that level of disruption that happens in that trust process, in that hierarchy process that you said, of understanding our places, whether or not we can trust somebody to do the job. And so when she tells me that she needs something, like, I'm going to be there to deliver because I trust her to do her job for her, what she needs. She trusts me to do my job for what she needs me to do. And then when I tell her that somebody's coming on to help me do something, you know, me and her had that conversation, and she was like, I can't have it be this. And I'm like, I understand. And I'm betting everything on her because I can't have it like this either anymore. Like, we've both been in the same position. So let's both bet that she's going to show up and do what she needs to do. And again, you showed up, you delivered flawlessly in every way. You were there. There was no complaints. There was nothing. It was just being there and delivering. And a lot of times this work that we do is not glamorous. Like, it has, but it goes back to what you just said. It has nothing to do with us. These moments that we create for human beings are literally because we understand the feeling and the experience and the magnificence of it, that we want them to experience it. And when we have a bad apple, or we have somebody who's not on the same level, that experience gets tarnished. And it's not just for us, but it's for those around us. And we talk about energy, and we talk about the transfer of, like, you and I have that. We can sense energy. We can talk without even talking. And there, like, we know. And when you create that set with so many people, multiple people around something so precious, something so beautiful, like, it has to be completely pure. It has to be so authentic. And there cannot be one person wearing a mask trying to, in any shape or form, come through and have something personal for themselves, because at the end of the day, it's nothing personal. And so that's what we've struggled with. And she trusts you now, like, you've been around with me now. And, like, even with my husband, like, we've said this, and you and I have had this conversation. My husband himself has seen people come and go through my life who've said that they're going to stay there, they're going to support, they're going to be there, and they're just, like, again, dipping down, like, through this room. And when you and I started this, he was like, let me know how long she lasts. And it was like, and I told you that. I was like, he has no faith you're staying, like, at all.
I was like, okay, that's fine. I was like, I'm happy to prove him wrong.
And that's one of those things that I loved about you and about us, is that we both want to prove people wrong about who we are, because we're not what our perception is. And the whole proving people wrong isn't necessarily proving them wrong. It's proving ourselves wrong. We're not what they say we are. We have been what our parents and our mothers and our fathers and our brothers and our sisters and whatever has said, because we've had to survive. And I think through our conversations and us understanding that just in our relationship, we've been able to hold ourselves accountable. Like, I'm not. And I've told you that. I'm like, you're not that. I know that's who you think you are and what you feel and where you want to go, because that's what you know is a habit, but that's not who you are. So you can make a decision betting on yourself or betting on a habit. And I'll always bet on myself. Like, that's the one thing. And that's the one thing, like, I'm always pushing on you or anybody around me. It's like, bet on yourself. Like, forget everything else. So it's been an extremely, it's been a very weird, like, good, peaceful, like, does that make sense? Like, this, like, this, because this isn't, like, this shouldn't be this easy, right? Like, relationships should not be this easy, even if we don't agree. Like, you and I don't agree on a lot of stuff. Like, we really don't.
Right.
But we don't. Like, I promise you guys, we don't agree on a lot of stuff. We just have the same understanding of our values and our missions and who we are as human beings, and, like, our whole core is very much the same. But and we're willing to be neighbors, and we're willing to, like, fight for each other because we have that same core value. Doesn't mean we agree. I'll tell her when she's wrong, and she'll tell me when she's wrong, and we'll stand up in public when we're wrong too. Like, it's not like, no, we'll hold each other accountable, like, very much so, because that's a requirement of our relationship. And I didn't realize how easy it would be to have a relationship like that, because every other relationship I've had in my life, whether that's a friendship, partnership, whatever, has been extremely difficult because of the expectations set upon me to be something I'm not. And I think that was the thing both of us have said from the beginning, is I'm not this and I'm not that, and I don't want to be. And so
I think it's also because we teach each other different, like, that is part of our relationship, is we teach each other. Like, and you've said it before, there are things that I teach you which I had no idea. I'm going to be completely honest. I think sometimes I'm oblivious to what I'm actually teaching you, if that makes sense. And it's not like, I don't say oblivious in a bad way. It's just like, I think sometimes I just go and I don't really pay attention to that because I'm just kind of being me. But it's like, we teach each other things. We break each other's bad habits. We, like you said, there's the accountability, and we're not afraid to take it, and we actually expect you to give us that accountability. And if you don't, we're like, hey, what the heck happened here?
Don't hold my
many,
hand. Like
right,
push me down if I need to be pushed down. Like, how many times have we said, like, punch me in the face? And I mean, like, okay, you guys, listen, this is, you're laughing because you know exactly the next words that are coming out of my mouth. I will throw a box at you. I have done it if I need to knock some sense into you, and I'm requiring you to throw a box at me if we need to knock some sense into each other, because if we don't, like, again, we don't have that physical connection. If you don't want to physically punch me, that's fine, but like, how many times have we, like, and I don't mean that we've assaulted each other, please, like, again, this is not any of that stuff. This is literally where I'm like, where do I, like, what's called, I have a teddy bear, like, I'm throwing a teddy bear at you, like, I am literally knocking some sense into you because, like, you're not getting this, like, you're not getting this, and then it's like, and it doesn't come back as like, you're not listening to me, you don't care about my feelings. And what's our saying? No, you're right, I don't care about your feelings because your feelings don't make sense right now, but what your actions are saying. Do you want to have a feelings conversations or do you want an action conversation? You may not understand the difference, but which one do you want? I think you want the feelings conversations. Let's vent it out. Let's have a feelings conversation, but then let's have an action conversation about how you're not going to be in this position again, how you're going to do better next time, and how and when you're going to be able to respond differently in the same circumstance, same situation, same emotional response. And you and I have had these thousands and one conversations because I'll remind you constantly, and you'll remind me too, like, a year ago, you weren't in this position. A year ago, like, you were in the same feeling, same exact overwhelming, like, I can't breathe, I'm going to drown, dying feeling, but in 10 times worse the situation. What can you do to, like, mitigate now that drowning feeling because you don't have the other situations to deal with? Like, you have more time and resources to figure that out. And so it's just really that perspective of having that conversation of, like, in those moments that we don't allow ourselves to have. Like,
the tantrum moments.
We don't allow tantrums. And it's like, you and I are just the best at tantrums. Like, we tantrum all the time. And I say it all the time, like, have a tantrum. But understand that, like, your tantrum needs to be done in a safe space. It needs to be done with safe and trusted people and humans who can provide you the, again, accountability and responsibility. And ultimately, the most important thing, and I think you and I have talked about this 101 times, is that that human being needs to be seen for where they are and what they are in the moment, in the space, in the time that they are in. Like, literally in this exact second that they're in, nothing more, nothing less, not the coulda, shoulda, woulda, not the maybe, possibly. It's just where they're at until it passes. Now, that could be 5 minutes, or that could be 10 minutes, and it could be 3 hours. But you have to understand one thing on that is the longer that time span is happening is the more the trauma, the more the overwhelming, the more the overload of a human being's senses is just on a level that the human cannot process. And you adding more to it, and I say you as in we adding more to it, it literally does no good other than for them to know that you're a safe space to contain it, right? Like, they want you to contain them, but they need to have the safe space to be able to release what that is within, because it's killing them. And you and I know this from experience. Like, it's killing us inside to feel what you're feeling and not be able to process and not have a safe space to contain it, or to be told that, you know what, it's too much, I can't do this, it's that, it's not, or just, I'm here to vent, go ahead, and I can put you on mute and you just go. And then I interject, okay, well, damn, okay, what do you need me to do? Do you want me to say anything? No, I'm just venting. Okay, I'm here and you're just venting. Like, you and I have done that. How many times do we do that? Like, you'll call me for 3 hours and I have you on mute too, and I'll pop in, and then you'll pop in. You do the same thing to me too, though. Like, we have to when we need it, because we know the space the person needs to be in, but that doesn't mean that, like, we have to interject in everything. Like, we're not here to
Well,
solve every problem. You don't need me to solve your problems. Like, you are more than capable of solving your own problems and taking care of your own self.
right.
And, like, I don't want that responsibility. Like, I don't want it. But I will take the responsibility of holding on to your emotions and holding on to a space and being a safe space for you, and to be able to give you that. Like, I think that's ultimately what every human being seeks, and what we all what will fix, if you will, our whole like problem is that if we just give humans the safe space to, and this is not about validating your feelings, like, because
sometimes,
no, and this is where we have to give a difference. Like, there is a difference in validating your feelings. There's a difference in validating your actions and validating the response versus validating the feeling. We're validating feelings because feelings, and we've said it, you and I have talked about this, we've said it, feelings are fleeting, and so many times and we don't care about them. We need to either validate the action or the reaction out of the feelings. And that's where we have had these conversations. It's like, you'll call me, you'll be like, I don't need you to tell me where I'm wrong about my feelings, whatever. Like, I'm feeling what I'm feeling. I just need you to tell me if my actions on how I responded were the appropriate. And you need to validate me in that and not in my feeling, because you know your feeling is off the jack right now. Like, you know your feeling is not where it needs to be, but you need to be validated in your response. And sometimes I'll be like, you know what, Brandy, maybe you shouldn't have knocked that, like, just, punch the tree. Like, maybe the tree punching is just not a thing right now. Not that she's punched a tree, guys. It's just a metaphor for what we talk about. Like, just want to say it to the level, right? But it's like, is that a tree worth punching? Like, no, maybe not. But, like, why did you respond that way? Well, I was just so angry. Well, okay, what was the angry? Oh, okay, well, I understand now. Okay. Well, my response does not need to be validated. And then other times, I'm like, nah, girl, you did everything you could to contain yourself. I would have done. Like, how many times have I told you where I'm like, I would have set that whole place on fire. I know I'm incriminating myself. I get it. But, like, I know. But that's the thing. I think overall, this whole conversation, all of this, which has been great for like now an hour and 30 minutes I'm going on, and we're going to end it pretty quickly soon too now too, because we got things to do. But what I want to say is, out of all of this, is that we know ourselves. We know the evil that we're capable of. We know the level that, like, the depravity that a human being is possible, because we've experienced it. We've experienced it to the depths of our souls, like genuinely to the depths of our souls, that we know that is a human potential. Like, even including within us, that we are willing so hard and working so hard to contain, control, and, like, maintain that side of us to never be the impact on humanity, because we know the impact. That doesn't mean that it doesn't slip up, right? That doesn't mean that we're not bitchy, asshole, and hard asses at times. However, doesn't mean we're not validated either or justified in our responses or our action, but our feelings might not be. And having understanding of where they come, how they come from, is all based on the experiences of how we've grown up and what we decide to do today. Again, we have 1,001 choices in front of us now. And we always talk about make the right choice. Well, choices are 1,000 and billion things in front of us right now, like so many. But the decision on a choice is what makes all the difference. And to follow through on that choice, and to decide that you're willing to follow through day and night on that choice because it's worth fighting for. Choices have to be looked at as bigger things than what they are, I think, now, versus, again, I can choose to change my mind about my food 18 times today. Like, how that is, like, but once I make a decision, if I'm going to eat on a certain time, and if I'm going to be healthy, and if I'm going to do this, that is a decision that has so much more meaning and impact. That's a bigger choice of my life that influences me and influences others around me, maybe in a better or worse way. I don't know, but just change my mind. That's a choice. Like, that's so fleeting. Like, we make it so I think understanding yourself and deciding that you're going to be a better version of yourself, that's the choice that you've decided on. And then everything else follows through is what I'm going to leave you guys off of with, because I think we've had a great conversation. Brandy, I'm going to ask you what you'd like to leave everybody off of with, and just your takeaway from this conversation and your message to the world.
So before I say that, I would say two things to kind of wrap up some of the things that you just said. So one of the things I was going to say was kind of rounding back to Leilana and you and I, is that like each one of us has been wronged in some type of way repetitively over a long period of time. That I think one of the takeaways from that photo shoot was to teach each of us how to trust people again, but not just how to trust people, because you can't just trust anyone right out of the gate. I think it's trusting them in the state of being that you are in that moment, but also that like the trust that you're placing within that human does come with stipulations, and you are putting yourself out there, but you're not afraid to do that. And I think that was a takeaway that happened there as well, is because, and I acknowledge that. But we allowed ourselves that ability to be able to trust in that moment. And I think that a lot of people are scared of that. And so sometimes people don't try at all, because it's easier to go off of past things happening repetitively than taking a chance on it actually working out. Now, you don't have to take a big chance, but you have to just a small baby step is going to have a much greater impact over a period of time. And so I did want to add that. And then the other thing I was going to say is that for you and I, it's also a lot of what version of you is feeling what you're feeling right now. And I think that can be spoken for anyone who's had an extreme amount of trauma happen throughout your life. Is it 5-year-old Brandy? Is it 18-year-old Adela? Like, is it which version of you is feeling what's happening right now?
Yes.
Because you could be 31-year-old Brandy and be able to process everything just fine, but something struck a chord with 15-year-old Brandy that she's like, let's throw some hands right now.
Yes.
Like, this is so
oh my God.
jacked
We're gonna
right
have
now.
to like go deep into the versions of that next conversations, because that
Yes.
is like key.
And that, yes. And I think that is a large portion of our relationship, is understanding that in that moment, what is actually happening and which version of you is processing what. And it could be like 3 different versions of you having something happen at once. And then you could go through the same thing again, and you could have healed 15-year-old Brandy, but 6-year-old Brandy is still ready, like, let's go, man. I don't like this. Like, and so I wanted to add that. But then I think what I would leave people with is that, yes, you've been through a lot of things. We all have. And yes, people can be cruel. You know, but don't give up on yourself. Allow yourself the space to be able to heal and do what it needs to do. You'll find your Adela, you'll find your Brandy, and if that's all you have in that moment, and that is the only human that you have, you know, that is okay. Like, it is okay to normalize dropping people like flies if they don't add something to your life. Like, you don't have to keep someone around in your life if all they do is cause you pain. You don't have to justify your actions. You don't have to justify walking away. If you've made the conscious decision that this does not work for you, then nothing else matters. And allow your space to be in that. But just whatever you do, don't back out of that decision.
And don't right, when you close that door, you lock it up, you bolt it up, it's done. You don't look back on it. You do not even, you erase it from your existence. Like, it has to be gone from your existence, regardless of whether or not you're in their existence.
Right.
You have to erase it.
Like, and I think for me, I have always just kind of been okay with just letting people go in my life. Like, but I think within this past year of my journey, like, I have more than ever just been really, really okay with just being like, okay, cool, fine. That, like, bye. Like, and I don't mean that to be harsh. Like, you're like, oh, but why are you doing it? No. I made a boundary, and if you're not going to respect it, it is my obligation to myself to ensure that you do. And if that means stepping away, if that means walking away, That's okay. You're not responsible for their emotions. You're not responsible for their actions. You're not responsible for any of those things. You are
Mhm.
only responsible for yourself. And if to your kids, if you have kids, if your dog, whomever, whatever other
Responsible to your
responsibility.
40 inches of space. That's your home. That's
Exactly.
your foundation. 6 feet
Right. Yes.
outside is everybody else's, boo. It's not you.
Right. And I think I would also leave it as you're going to go through many obstacles. Your healing journey is going to be painful. It's going to be hard. It's going to be rough. It's not easy. It's not going to take 2 months. It's not going to take 6 months. It could take 5 years or more, but in that time, you are going to be changing. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of change. It is okay. It's inevitable. Like,
It's really the
there are
greatest thing
people,
that can happen to you.
right, right. And just remember that not everyone in your life is meant to be around for your entire life. Some people are just a period on the page. Other people are meant to be there the entire time. And it's just knowing when that chapter ends, and that's okay. Like, and it doesn't have to end good or it doesn't have to end bad, but like,
It has to end.
yeah, it does. And you know what? There are some people worth fighting for in your relationships and others aren't. And like that's okay. But you just need to make those decisions for you and you need to be aware of those decisions and you need to have to back those decisions. Like, but you also don't have to justify them to anyone else. And I think that's what I would leave people on with
Yeah.
today is just learn to be okay with you, whatever version that is, and the right people will gravitate towards you. And I think that is how our relationship has been, is that like we were just us and we gravitated, the right people are gravitating towards us.
That doesn't mean we didn't have 101 wrong in between to
Hmm.
get to the one or two right. But like now
Hmm.
the few right that we have is like such a core foundation of who we are and what we want to do and how we want to accomplish it that it doesn't
Hmm.
matter. Like,
Right.
it doesn't matter.
It's it's
So
it's okay to have three solid people in your circle
then 300
versus
none.
and none of them. Like because those three solid people will benefit you way more
They'll move
than
heaven and
keeping.
earth for you
Right,
versus those 300 that could potentially
right,
save heaven and earth will destroy it.
right. Like so, for example, you and I, like you've have like I can't say the words I'm trying to say. You have vocalized day in and day out who your set people are. Your this is where my hill, like this is this, and this is this. And I understand all of that. And then I have done the same. But because of the foundationship and the relationship we have built, those people are now my people, and my people are now your people.
And so now we're willing to die for our people in our
Right,
communities and like we're willing to fight for
right,
these battles because we know and we trust that like
right,
you will ensure that the things that matter to me the most as a
right,
human, that no matter where I'm at, if
right,
I'm here or not, but you
right.
are, you're going to
Yeah,
ensure that those things will be. And I've
right,
always said that, like, if something were to happen and I'm not around, what am
right.
I leaving my child with? Like, what kind of narrative, people, humans, like, what am I leaving him with?
Hmm.
And if it's not the best for those that were willing to step up when I can't,
Hmm.
then, and it's like my always, that's never been
Right.
my hiding thing. I've never like hid what my
Mm-mm.
intention is, ever will be. Like, anything I do will
Hmm.
be for that intention, is that
Hmm.
if I'm not here, who will be stepping up to be here? Like,
Right,
ultimately, it doesn't matter, like, period. And that's the
yeah,
relationships I'm building up, and that's the foundations I'm building, because it's not about me. It'll never be about me. I can take care of me.
hmm,
I can do me, right? Like,
right.
we've done it. But I know that,
Well, and we're also adults, and Lee and Freya are just innocent souls that are still navigating, that still require protection. Even when, Lee becomes an adult, he's still going to require
But it's
that.
all of us as human beings. And I think that's what's like so
Right.
disheartening about everything that's going on in the world is that we don't look at it that way. We look at it as everything is a strategic, monetary, and just profit based decision or choice versus the human, like the humane choice. And it's like the hardest part is because we genuinely cannot do anything about the world. But then that goes back into the question of what are we going to do as individuals. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with off on that too, is that if we can't change the world, we can't change the world, and we can't change anything outside of our home, which is the 6 feet. Anything outside on the sidewalk is 6 feet, guys. That's my perspective, and I'll talk about that on a different video. I have a whole class on that. And anything within my control is my 40 inches. That's my family. That's my home. That's my structure. And it's like, what are we doing within those 40 inches of our space that we have the ability to control, that we have the ability to impact? How are we impacting that? What boundaries are we creating? What morals are we setting? What values are we building and raising our families and and those around us, for our friends, our partners? But as an individual, you need to know that. So I'm asking you to ask yourself that and kind of dig deep into that, because everything else that you want to do on the outside, all the answers you're seeking for, you genuinely will find them within. And then what you'll be able to do to actually change and impact the world in the way you want to will be so much easier. And I know we speak this from where we're at now compared to where we started. And again, Brandy and I have been on the back end of this from really the get-go of stuff where we're like, yeah, 1 year, we're saving the whole world. Where we're like, if in 1 year we can reach one person, yay. Like, whoa, introspection. And so I want you to be that. Ask yourself those questions and see what value you're really bringing to the table in your own home, in your own space, in your own time. And that does not mean monetary. That does not mean physical or material value. It means also intellectual, spiritual, emotional. What you as a whole being are you bringing? And if you feel that you are lacking, that feeling can be changed, because it is a feeling and a perspective that can be changed. So what can you do to change that feeling? And if that means you need to reach out to friends, you need to reach out to other people, you need to have conversations, you need to read more, you need to listen to different books or just different narratives and perspectives, and educate yourself and inform yourself and reevaluate your whole perspective, then that's what that means. And so I encourage you to do that, because I promise you that it will benefit you in the long run. We have a saying that it's nothing about the short-term goals, because short-term goals are just 3 years from now. That's a short-term goal. But the long-term goal, what is our 60-year plan? What is it that we want to leave this really solid foundation and a track record of our humanity and the footprints we leave? And it's not, again, about fame and fortune and names and Adela and lights, Brandy and lights, blah. It's none of that. It not even one close. But it's about when someone goes back and to really look at my closet and go, damn, her closet was pretty damn organized and clean. I'll be like, yeah, I'm proud of it. Monica me. Let's go. So I encourage you to clean your closets, guys. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Brandy, thank you for joining me and staying on for this long and having the conversation with me. I think it was really insightful and important. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you did, leave us a comment, leave us a like, follow us, subscribe, and all the other good things that will help us reach more human beings, because at the end of the day, our whole mission and vision with this podcast is for you to see that you are the artist of your own making. You are the creator of your reality, of your life. We completely and utterly understand circumstance and situations that you have no control over and have, again, all the uncontrollable things. But what you do have control over is how you act, how you respond. And if you don't know how to do either one, then it's up to you to learn. It's up to you to find the resources. And this is speaking from something we both have had to do, and seeking those resources and trusting yourself to know that you're worth the time, you're worth the value and the effort of your own self. Just like every other business will tell you, invest in me, invest in this, invest in my vision, invest in my dreams. Invest in yourself. You are worth it. You really are. I don't know how else to say, and this is not for selfish reasons. This is not go home and gung ho and be like, it's about me. It is about you, but it's not about you. It's about you becoming the best version for yourself to be the best version of yourself for others. And I'll leave you with this saying because it just popped in my head, and it's something we just said the other day. It's that on the airplane, the air mask, when they say put the air mask on, get the air oxygen mask, okay? Get the oxygen and the breath for yourself first. Like that saying I never understood, because I would sacrifice my life for my child. I would sacrifice my life for any of that. I never understood it until recently, what it means to like feed your soul first. Feed and fuel yourself first before you are ever in a position to feed or fuel anyone else. All you're doing is
you can't help others if you can't help yourself first.
And and this is the thing too, if your narrative and the fuel that you have is just old and dirty and muddy, and you're feeding everybody else the same shit, you're not doing anything else. Yeah, like if it's coming from the same dirty ass machine and the dirty ass things, like you're just as dirty as everything else, and you're not doing anything to make an impact. So, and I use the word dirty because I'm all about cleaning and clean your closets, and we'll talk more about that, but like it's really the truth. So clean yourself, clean your thoughts, clean your mind, clean your emotions, cleanse your being. And that starts with so many different ways and spaces and places that it requires you to actually take action upon. I hope you guys can hear my dogs, and if you don't, that's awesome, but if you do, we apologize. I apologize. They're awesomely barking, and something's going on downstairs, which also means it's time for us to end it. Again, so much love. We appreciate you. Follow, support, subscribe, and until next time, toodles.